Here we go. This will be cool. John's calling from Alabama. Pronouns are she, her. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm doing my medication is making me burp more. And it got right in the middle of that one. So she wants to know what's the main thing that makes us not believe in Christianity. Oh, John, that's easy. I am not convinced it's true because it hasn't met its burden of proof.
Oh, okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
We
welcome.
can.
Oh, sweet. Okay. Um, yeah, it's okay. So it hasn't met a burden of proof. Um, what do you think would be required for you to believe? Like, what measure of proof would you need?
I don't
Um,
know. It depends. It depends on the very specific nature of the claim, because
mhm,
some claims already have a lot of evidence for them. Some don't. That's why we call them extraordinary claims because they're inconsistent with the evidence. But I will say that if a God exists, I would think that God should know exactly what should convince me, and that God
mhm.
should be capable of presenting whatever it would be that would convince me. And that the fact that this hasn't happened means that either that kind of God does not exist or that kind of God does not want me to know that it exists. Either way, it's not my problem.
Hmm. Okay. Oh well.
And
Well.
I was just going to say the
I
category
think.
that it definitely would not be is testimony, because testimony, we know that people are routinely mistaken about things, and we know that people
Mhm.
routinely lie about things. So one category that I can tell
Okay.
you it will never come out of for me is
Yeah.
solely testimony. Right? No
Testimony
level
Yeah.
of
backed by evidence.
testimony. Yeah. So I was just that was my clarification there. Please go ahead and what was your next thought, John?
Well, I was actually basically gonna ask you, like, is it a historical account of something? Is there any scenario in which that would be enough to convince you? Because I mean, I know there are
No.
supernatural claims, right? So they're not something that can
Yeah.
be demonstrated
I,
consistently.
I don't
But
I don't have any reason to demonstrate. So there's no, you say consistently, I'm not aware of anyone ever demonstrating anything supernatural ever in the history of the world. Are you aware of something like that?
well, I mean, there are miracles. The Catholic Church can says that there are miracles, and they have
Okay.
testimony claiming those
And
miracles are true. And so
yeah, but that's
yeah, so I would say that
testimony.
people say that they say that they've seen that. But I
Yeah.
guess, like, it's consistently what I mean is, like, I couldn't say a magic word and make it, happen, that kind of thing. Um,
Well, what I'm
but
saying
has
is
it happened? Have
out,
you ever?
out what I'm saying is outside of reports of this happened. First of all, most of what people claim happened, they just assume that it's supernatural in origin. They never demonstrated that it's supernatural in origin. So in the history of the world, not only has no one ever demonstrated that the supernatural is real or that the supernatural can interact with the natural world, but people keep making claims about it. And since I have no way of verifying, and it appears that nobody else has any way of verifying supernatural claims, I can't accept the stories about supernatural claims, which is why I was asking you what proposed supernatural or what proposed event are you aware of that you think has a supernatural origin that we should accept?
Well, obviously, I'm a Christian, so I believe that Christ raised himself from the dead. But that's, I guess, really what. So I mean, that's something that's supernatural that I believe happened. But
Okay, why
yeah,
should
it's not like I
we
can
believe
I can
that?
prove.
I'd like to know why you believe it and why you think we should believe it, because I'm aware that there are stories. I am not
Mhm.
convinced that the event happened, but even if the event happened, I don't know how anybody conclude that the explanation is supernatural.
Well, I mean, isn't doesn't someone raising themselves from the dead that that defies the natural laws that we understand,
So
right? So that in itself
here
would be
this is
you don't wouldn't have to demonstrate that
no,
that's supernatural.
no,
It's just
no, no, no,
evidently
no, 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 John. Here's the thing.
okay.
Person exists, person dies, person
Uh
is
huh.
alive again. Those are the facts.
Mhm.
How did you determine that that person raised themselves from the dead by supernatural powers rather than some other explanation for how they died or were reported dead and then were alive again afterwards? So you can't take the facts, inject
Mhm.
your solution without justification. So even if I believed that Jesus existed and was killed and
Mhm.
was alive again, I've died and come back already once thanks to medical intervention. I don't think that medical intervention
Oh,
existed I've had a triple bypass. I don't think that medical intervention existed in the first century, but
no, no, no.
we know of people who have been clinically dead and come back. We
Mhm.
know of people who have been buried alive and died
Mhm.
afterwards because they couldn't escape. We know of people who've been buried alive and came back, and it was common enough that they would bury people with a bell and a string for them to
Yeah.
pull just in case. So, if the story is Jesus lived, died, and then a couple of days later was seen alive again,
Mhm.
how did you determine that the correct explanation or the most probable explanation is that he resurrected himself by a supernatural powers?
Well, so for the case of Jesus Christ in particularly, you have to look at the context of it. And the context is that he reportedly performed these miracles his whole life. He reportedly claimed to be God, and he reportedly predicted that he would do this, that he would die and then raise
And I'm
himself from the dead. And then
reportedly
after he rose,
impatient as fuck when people start talking about reportedlies. I know what's been
hey,
reported. I
you can
used to
trust me.
believe this. I used to believe this. I used to teach it. I was going to preach it. I know what has been reported. I'm asking, how do we verify the reports?
Okay, so when someone claims that they saw something, like they give a testimony, right? That's them saying that I saw this and I know he said these things, right? So you're taking them at their word. It's a historical, right? The historical account, so someone wrote it down. Okay, but then they say
If
that
I tell
hundreds of
you,
people saw.
if I tell you that I saw someone's limb regrow in front of me, are you going to take me at my word?
No, no, but I guess I would say
So
if
basically you're saying that
you and all your friends and then a
your
bunch of other
standards of
people you didn't
evidence,
know also said that,
what you're saying is
I
that
would.
you're a hypocrite with regard to standards of evidence, that you will believe unverifiable second and third hand accounts that are millennia
Well,
old.
there was an account.
Hang
There
on,
were there was
hang on,
the
hang on.
disciples
I'm
witnessed
not
it.
done fucking talking. You're
Hey,
saying,
why are
hey,
you
nothing.
yelling cussing at me?
I'm gonna fucking cuss whenever the fuck I want on my own fucking show. Stop interrupting me and listen.
That's
What you've
okay. We're
just
done. Goodbye.
Yes, we are. Go run away, John. Gosh, she was just terrified. She was
Yeah,
absolutely terrified of being of acknowledging that you just can't buy into the reports.
evangelicals don't like the F word, so they, anything you say after that, they don't hear.
It's
Sometimes,
wild because
yeah,
it's the F word, by the way. Nothing that's prohibited by Scripture. I'm not
no,
taking the Lord's name in vain or anything else. I'm talking about sex at best or a phoneme that has nothing to do with sex at worst. Here's the thing before I was so rudely interrupted. What she was saying is that she's willing to accept the gospel accounts and reports of what happened, which are copies of translations of copies of an oral history that may or may not be reliably reported, could be perfectly true, but willing to take unknown authors and unknown eyewitnesses as testimony at their word, but not me when I'm right here talking about an event that we can potentially investigate. I have no way of investigating an empty tomb. I have no way of investigating who was in that empty tomb and when and where, but she'd rather take the word because it's popular, because a lot of people before her had taken that word. because a lot of people are surrounding them believe this. And so, despite the fact that this same book talks about healing the sick, healing the blind, making the lame walk again, raising the dead, all of which are similarly extraordinary, if not exceptionally, even more extraordinary than just regrowing a limb. Because, by the way, I have lizards in my house that can regrow limbs and tails. So there's an actual physical, natural process within animals where this can occur. Now, I for those who don't know, I keep and breed reptiles. I work with, I think, 12 species of lizards and 19 or 20 species of snakes. Some of them can regrow limbs, most can't, or most are unlikely to. In some of them, twinning is much more common. We've already produced 3 sets of twin ball pythons this year alone, and I have a baby in there where it doesn't have a tail. And you're like, hang on, isn't a snake all tail? No, a snake is not all tail. A snake is head, neck, body, back to the cloaca, which is where everything goes in and out on the inside there, poop, pee, urate, all of it. And then from the cloaca out to the tip, that portion is the tail, and they're varying lengths. We have one that's deformed that I might, if I can get Arden to grab it before the show's over, I'll show you because it's really cool. We don't know if it's going to survive yet, but it looks healthy other than it just stops at the butt. It's not going to regrow its tail as far as we know. But the fact is, parthenogenesis occurs in lizards. That is reproduction by a female without any male's involvement. It has been seen in many of the species that we keep here because the females are just producing eggs. And sometimes genetic cloning essentially happens. Parthenogenesis. Is that how Mary actually conceived Jesus? We have no records of parthenogenesis in human that are verifiable. But how did you rule out some kind of weird genetic aberration when all life is related? No matter how improbable it is for humans to reproduce parthenogenically, isn't that still more probable than magic impregnated her? I don't know. But when you say you're willing to, now granted, it was John. When John says that she's willing to accept, somebody else's testimony and not mine, maybe it's a personal thing. Maybe I'm just not particularly trustworthy. By the way, I love Paul, one of my favorite people, and I trust Paul. If Paul said he watched somebody regrow a limb in front of me, I'm not going to believe that that's what actually happened, but I will definitely believe that Paul's trying to tell me what he thought, what he saw. I just don't think he actually saw a limb regrow. Did you?
I have not yet.